Hello everyone, this is John from Uzbasic Motorsports Performance Parts. But hey, a little different. Today we brought the Pro Mod out on our Uzbasic Motorsports racing team, and we're here today at our best buddy's place that does all of our vinyls, car wrapping, everything, Larsen Sign Company. These guys are freaking awesome. They can do anything from banners to complete car wrapping, vinyl, anything you want done. This is a place to go. They're located out of Tacoma, Washington. Awesome organization, bunch of great guys run this place. Just a perfect organization to do business with. Be sure that, hey, when you come in, tell them you saw this on Uzbasic Motorsports. I know they'll give a big thumbs up for that. So anyway, later on we're gonna go actually into how the vinyl was processed and having it installed in the whole 9 yards. So it's going to be pretty cool of a little infomercial for everybody. Hey, welcome back. Again, this is John from Uzbasic Motorsports, and I told you we're going to come into the shop. That's where we are right now. But first, I want to introduce you to the man, the guy, Kyle from Larsen Sign Company. This gentleman is going to get a rare chance because he's going to actually take us through the application. But I'm telling you, if you think this is a 5-minute job, it isn't. I'm going to turn it over to Kyle. He's going to kind of tell you what all took place prior to this point, so you all appreciate what this is all about.
Yeah.
Kyle.
Very cool. Well, what we're going to do here, we're actually going to be doing a 2-layer vinyl decal. And so what we'd like to do is use a high-performance cast vinyl. It's meant to be about an 8 to 10-year vinyl. And it's meant to have a high tack, so that obviously when you're going fast or you're wanting it on something that's going to be long-term, we use this cast vinyl. So what we ended up doing before we got to this step is we got the measurements, the photos of the actual vehicle itself, scaled it into the computer, and then we took the artwork that we have on file, scaled it out correctly to it, worked with these two gentlemen on getting the correct sizing, and then produced the graphics. The machine itself will cut out the graphic out of a solid sheet of colored vinyl, and then we take out all the stuff around it. All this white area gets taken out, which leaves you with your graphic. Then we apply the transfer tape. The transfer tape allows you to be able to pull the backing off and stick the vinyl on there. And then what we do is we have these little squares here. These squares allow us to, once the black layer is down, you get to use this to be able to put it on top, and allows you to apply the second layer exactly where it's supposed to go. And so that allows you to do that. Once you take that off, take the transfer tape off, and then you just heat it up, get any bubbles that may have come out there, and it's good to go.
So Kyle, I got a question. How long did this process take how long is it normally should take from start to finish?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, the setup with all the photos and everything, start to finish, could take about an hour, maybe 2 hours to do, depending on how many guys you got on the project. So, yeah, so I would say it looks easy because it's just a sticker, but they do take time, especially 2 layers, and it takes time and a little bit of effort to get it on there correct. So,
how long have you folks been in business here?
My uncle started this business in 1981, so 40 years this year.
40 years.
Yeah.
So you know, you guys are an established entity, and you know what the heck you're doing.
Yeah, we've been around, and this is kind of our niche. Vehicle graphics are kind of our big thing. So.
And I'll tell you, everybody, also what's great about these guys, they can do complete wrapping of cars, which is awesome.
Yeah.
So. Listen, what we're going to do is we're going to actually take you through the process now.
Yeah.
So everybody belt in, because this is cool stuff that's going to happen.
So really what we try to do is we give ourselves a baseline here. This baseline allows us to know that is the straight line on the graphic. And then what we do is you either measure it off of a piece of trim that is going to be level on the vehicle, or in most cases you measure off of the bottom of the door. A lot of people will apply it based off of their eye level, but that doesn't always mean that that's the correct level, because the car could be at an angle or in a hole or a rivet or a divot or any of those kind of things. So we usually go off of the trim. On this one, we went off of the top here measured it down, made sure it was centered on the door. And then the best step to do, what you do now, we talked about that transfer tape. Once you lift this up, you carefully peel this backing paper off. What I usually do is peel it about halfway, and that gives me a chance to have something to hold on to down here. And the main thing, this is a wrap vinyl, so the wrap vinyl is pretty, it's pretty forgiving. And so the main deal is just to let it kind of hang down there, and then you just go about an inch or two at a time and work your way from the center out. And this car has such a beautiful paint job that you just got to be careful. You want to give it some pressure to get that vinyl to really sit down well. And then it go all the way over. You may get some small pieces of air pockets in there, and that's okay, because this vinyl is what's called air release vinyl. Air release vinyl allows you to actually pop any holes or any creases on there, and it allows you to actually work through that. Now sometimes what you'll get a spot right in the middle here where it's starting to really wrinkle on you because of the body lines on the vehicle. So what we end up doing usually is we get a knife, and you carefully keep it away from the paint job, and you just very carefully cut right down the actual body line. And then so what you can do, that allows it so that the vinyl doesn't want to continue to buckle on you at all. So we go down here, and once you get to this point, there's going to be another body line in there. We try to just apply right over that body line. And then you can tack your vinyl. Gives you a chance to here. Now, you don't have to always apply over everything because obviously the only part you're really looking to make sure that gets down is the actual part where the vinyl is. So you want to just barely get that down. Then once all this is squeegeed, then you want to give it one more time a go around to really make sure that it's actually pushed down here. There's going to be a little bit of air in between these body lines, and that's okay because again, this stuff is the air release vinyl, and so it will allow you to work around it. And if the best part about this type of graphic, if there's any type of problem where you do get a wrinkle, then you can replace individual letters. This isn't a full wrap, and so if you had an issue where it may have wrinkled too much, which it looks like it may have had a little bit here, then you can just replace the A in basics. So what we end up doing is, again, we want to make sure this part is all pushed down as much as possible. And then once you know that it's down, then the thing is you want to take this transfer tape off. The transfer tape is pretty aggressive, so this is where a lot of people go wrong with vinyl, is that they try to just go quick and pull it. And the issue with that is that sometimes it'll want to pull the vinyl up with it. So the best thing to do is actually go at a very big angle and just go slowly with the vehicle. I usually will put my hand on it, and that will make sure that it pushes that all down. So the goal is to not go super fast. Just take your time. Sometimes it'll start cutting here, which is good. That gives you a little bit smaller work area to have to worry about. Now we saw that there was, in that tape, there was a little bit of a piece here, which there is a little bit, but I think the best part about this is that you can use your hand. This stuff is that air release vinyl, and it's gone. So that allows you to correct your mistakes if there's any issues, because that stuff is a lot easier to use. Once you use heat, it'll get rid of any of those little blemishes as well, which is nice.
Looking beautiful.
Yeah, it works out nice. The gloss black is very nice with this high gloss paint job. There's a lot of different colors, and you can get matte black, you can get satin, all those colors are available, and they have a full catalog of things that people can get.
So this is step one then,
First
Kyle,
step,
right?
yep.
Yeah.
It's just the black.
It's just the black. So that's where a lot of people, again, it's not a simple process of just applying that one. And then what I'll probably do is pause this, and I'm going to go grab a heat gun. Some people use torches, some people use heat guns. What I like to do is heat this up in between the stages. That allows you to make sure that the lower layer was also detailed enough and had a chance to tack before you put the second layer on top of that. So I'll go and grab my stuff, and I'll be right back. So.
Okay.
So tell me, John, how you think it's going? You're silhouetted.
Oh, hold on.
Let's get your face in the light. I think it's gone.
Hey, you want to know something? This is awesome. I'll tell you, Kyle, this is, like I said, is the man. But a great thing, again, like I said, is these guys are awesome at what they do. So we're going to go on with the next step of the process, and more cool stuff coming up.
All right. So this step is, and you got to be really careful with it, is heating. And a lot of people, people will say different things about heat with vinyl. You don't want to use a ton of heat because you don't want to have issues with the clear coat or with the paint underneath it. But you also don't want to use too little heat because that adhesive behind it needs to set. And so a lot of people will say you have to have over a certain amount of degrees. What we usually do is I use a heat or a torch, but you have to be very careful with a torch. Most places use either a torch or a heat gun or even a hair dryer. And at home use, I would use a hair dryer. It's the safest way. The main deal is you never want to just sit right on the vehicle. You never want to just let it bake that paint. So that you always want to be moving, and you want to be a good probably 6 inches away from the surface, so that way it's not having issues. So what I like to do is just fan it, just roughly hit over the whole thing. There's an area where you have to do what's called a bridge. Sometimes you can apply the vinyl right into that, and that's a great method. But in this case, because we were trying to keep the vinyl in one layer, we had to bridge over this, which means very lightly applying here. Then we have to heat it and then push into that area. So what we're going to do when we set this, I'm going to heat the top, work my way down. Once I get to that point, then you'll see me push into that area, and that's just to make sure that it sets well in here and doesn't try to bubble up. So that's a big miss that a lot of people do, is that they try to just use their finger and push it down. They don't heat it, and then after about a month, this starts to buckle back up and come back up. So we're just going to lightly fan it just enough so that it heats up that glue underneath. This is the area that we thought was going to have an issue. This was right here. And once you heat it, this vinyl is great. 3M makes this wrap film that allows you to, even if it looks like it has an issue, you heat it and it actually conforms to the paint, which is great. So, and Avery, a couple other companies do the same thing. When you're doing this, the main thing is not only can you see where the adhesive is going to need to be pushed down, but sometimes with your squeegee you don't give it a lot of pressure, and there may be some slight bubbles underneath it, and you won't see that unless you actually use heat. Heat will show those bubbles right away, which is good to catch. So this part's good. Now this is the part we were talking about. You just got to heat that up so that way you can work your hand in there. And I start from the middle, work my way out. That way I don't cause any additional bubbles in there. Barely heat it. Once you do that, do an overview. And there you go. So that's tucked in. I'm not going to do it on this registration mark because it's not an issue. And then John was talking about not having like a 5-minute project. This is kind of where it is a little bit more difficult than sometimes just throwing it onto a door, especially this door. It's hard to see with the light, but you have a big contour here that comes up, and it's not an even right down the middle. You see it, it's big here, very little here. and the door is also bubbled. So again, it looks easy to do. Once you see it though, this slight curve makes it difficult to put a decal down. So what we do is, like we were talking about, you have these registration marks. It's hard to see because the registration's yellow on a yellow car, but I just cut this notch out of here, and that way I can see it underneath or behind it too, and match it up to make a complete square. And then I just do the same thing all the way around the vehicle, as I will get them to match up. The problem is previously when we applied the black layer, you saw I had to cut this section off and manually tack it down. So the only thing that could happen in that case is that if that shifted by any way, then this black outline could be uneven on that lower part.
Right, that makes sense.
Yeah, so what you want to do, what may have to happen, and what I'm probably going to end up doing, is I want to apply this section, this stripe. I'm going to apply that first. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to, now that it's set up, I'm going to put a piece of tape up here like I did before. But I'm going to physically, once I get that, I'm going to manually cut out this center section, this text. That way I know that the stripe is going to be in line. And then what I'll do is I'll set it up afterwards and we'll realign, make sure that this is in line for that. Some people may say, well, why don't you just float it on? You can use, some people use a liquid, and what they'll do is they'll spray the back of this paper, spray the surface, and just tack it on, let it float around, and then squeegee the air out. If you do that, though, a lot of the times you get a bunch of air bubbles underneath it between the vinyl and the other vinyl with that liquid. If you don't get all the liquid out, you get a ton of air bubbles. And then on a car this nice, I don't like taking that chance. So, so we're going to just do that other method, and that way we know that the text will line up and that the stripe will line up. So the first step will be, and this is the same thing if you've got a decal on your back window on your car. This method is the easiest way to apply a decal without getting a ton of bubbles. You just put a piece of tape on the decal, piece of tape on the vehicle, and then you lift it up, take the backing off, and use a credit card or a squeegee, and then apply a nice smooth motion, but a good amount of pressure so that way you're not getting a bunch of bubble trapped in there. So again, anytime we're going to cut the graphic, especially on a nice vehicle, you want to make sure it's off of the paint so you don't have any problems. I'm going to try to give myself still a good amount of vinyl in case I need to rework this part so that it doesn't just flop around. I'm going to cut this here, cut this. And when it comes here, I like to give myself somewhat of a straight line, so I'm going to do a straight line here. Save that part for later. And on this, like we were doing before, I'm going to peel off the backing. This is not a wrap film. This one is what they call a 220 high performance vinyl. This is a high tack vinyl that is meant to be on there for 10 years. So we use this to make sure that that you're not having to come back here every 3 to 4 years because your vinyl is having issues. So, so this here, just apply again, only having to apply where you need to go on that section. And then while I'm doing that, I'm just keeping an eye on my outline. This one's kind of tricky because it has an outline, but it also has a drop shadow. So yeah, you gotta, what I'm trying to look at is looking at this outline here, trying to make sure that that is consistent, which it should be about I think it's a 0.2, so just under a 1/4 inch drop shadow on there. So it's staying consistent right now. Then once we get to this point down here, we had to do that bridging, which we talked about, so you don't apply all the way into that pocket. A little lower here, and you can work your way. And again, this thing does have that drop shadow on there, so we're gonna try to pull it down a little bit, make sure that that's consistent. I can see see it underneath here, so that makes it easier.
Damn, you got that centered perfectly.
Yeah,
That's why we come here, because you guys deal with the hard,
you see it.
difficult situations, and there's no shortcuts done here
Nope.
at
Yeah.
Larsen Sign Company at all.
I'll tell you that it seems like it'd be something like you saw Jesse did the other side over there.
Yeah.
And it looks so easy because it's just, once it's on there, you say, oh, that had to have been a real quick application because it's just putting a sticker down. But it does take time, and it takes time to do it right. This stuff, so once you get that down, you got to be really careful, especially with washing. Washing the car, we talked about any of these fine points. You really want to be cautious.
Yep.
That way you don't have, you don't try to peel them up.
Right.
And then what I do is now we detailed the other side, or the other layer, a second ago. We're gonna do the same thing on this one. I use a felt squeegee. That's a softer squeegee. That allows you to kind of push it into that curve. And then once we get a little bit of heat, you don't want to really overheat this. This vinyl is a very high grade vinyl that it seems opposite, but the thinner the vinyl is, the better it is. So when you heat it, this stuff is so thin that it can stretch easily. So what you want to do is when you heat it, you don't want to give it very much, and just enough where it starts to get a little pliable. And again, I use my hand and just to get it to start to tack down. And obviously you can see it still needs a little bit more heat. So I just give it a little bit more, and I work my way out. And there's a little bubble. When you get a little X-Acto knife, we use a number 11 X-Acto. And those ones are just your standard craft store ones. All you have to do is pop one hole and work it out. That's all it takes.
Amazing.
So and you can, it's kind of interesting because you can see these were, when the paint was done, you can actually feel those stripes because it's such thick paint.
Yeah.
So even if you see it at an angle, you can still see them through that. You can still see it through that that vinyl, which is kind of a cool layer. And what I'm doing here is just popping any little bubbles that I may see that came up. Little bubbles will go away in UV when you get into the sun at the track. When you get the high heat, those little bubbles will go. It just takes time to sometimes dissipate down. So what I'm going to do now is it's an extra step, but again, I like to make sure it's done right. What we're going to do is I'm going to actually cut this part into sections, and that allows me to do each word one at a time. Because our registration marks got switched because of that big body line, I like to do it individually. So I'll be back. I'm going to go cut these out, and then we can do it one piece at a time. We'll be good to go.
Excellent.
All right, so what I did this time is I cut each individual line out. That will allow me to actually see. Now you can, and I cut it kind of close, so you can actually see the outline, and I can make sure that it's consistent all the way around. This will be a lot easier than trying to apply that big piece and hope that it matches up with all these outlines. So what I did is I'm looking here, making sure that's consistent, and then you go to the opposite end, and I'm going to make sure that that's consistent. It looks like it's about an 1/8, just a little over an 1/8 inch bleed is what it's supposed to be. So as long as I'm consistent on that bleed, then we should be good. And now when you go from this, the next step, there's two different ways to apply. I showed you one, so I'll show you the other one. There's some companies that this is the only way that they apply vinyl. I don't do it very often, but there's a lot of other companies that do. This is called a center hinge. So you saw me do a top hinge on the other ones. This one's a center. There's a lot of people that do all applications this way. I don't use it very often because I personally feel like it goes off easier. It goes off track easier.
Yeah.
Because this one is so small and because this thing has such curves on it, the center hinge actually works better on this specific application. And so what you have to do is, this one, it's a lot weirder deal. You have to get this set up over here. You have to, again, lightweight off the vehicle. You have to cut a piece out. Then pop this back. All at the same time, you're trying not to get the back of this vinyl, trying not to let it get dust and a bunch of debris on it, because that's where you get a lot of the bubbles that you can't work out, is when you get bubbles on there. So, so then what I do is, again, kind of work your way from the middle out. Okay, so then you can see the outline is sharp on there. So from here, this side is usually the easier side. If you got something to now hold on to. The goal is to try to keep this flat. If you go at an angle, you can see that it's going to go off. So if you go flat there, then you can technically, you can just go all the way and then work your way out from the middle.
Amazing.
So that makes it as close as you can. So then again, the main thing is, when you're peeling this backing paper, is to just be cautious and not try to pull right with it. So, and the other thing that some people say is, well, why didn't you just print it? You know, we could have technically printed this whole thing and did a machine cut around all of this black. When you do that, one, time frame's an issue. So you got to print, wait about 4 hours for the ink to dry, then laminate it, then machine cut it. So it's about an 8-hour process just in producing the decal, where we were able to have you guys go and grab a coffee and come back and have everything ready for you. When you do it this way, and also ink fades, this is not as quick. So, so it's better to do it in 2 layers of vinyl if you can. Because it'll last longer too. So,
Total sense.
yeah. So, but that is, if you want to do it without having to do it in 2 layers, you can definitely do it that way as well. So same situation here. Because this one is a smaller word, the outline is going to be smaller on this one. So it was about an 1/8 inch here, a little over. This one is going to be closer to about a 1/16 or so. So again, that's why you want to do this. You want to cut these apart, because if you're just barely off, you could be way off on your, when you go to apply this, and then you could be having problems at the end where it's way off there. What we try to tell people when they're applying this kind of stuff is, actually, this is another method. So I'm trying to show you all the different types you could do. You can see the curvature on this thing because of the tape. So when I go to peel this up, it's starting to buckle. Because of that curve. So what you could do if you don't apply vinyl for a living, is you can literally just get some scissors or X-Acto and just cut in between the letters. And that allows you to be able to apply just whatever you're comfortable with. So if and it doesn't buckle, because you do that. Now it doesn't buckle on there on you, and it allows you to be comfortable with it, which is good, and keep the accuracy on your outline. So I'm just going to apply a couple letters at a time. Boats are big about this kind of stuff because boats have so many curves that you kind of have to do it in piecework, or lots of heat with wrap material. That's how people wrap boats, mostly with wrap material and a lot of heat. So that's that. Again, you want to go slow. So if you go fast, you're going to want to peel off that backing paper.
That would be bad.
It will. It'll peel, because not only could you technically peel up the yellow, but You could also peel up the black on the back because the black is that wrap material.
Right.
So it's gonna take a couple decent days like it is right now. You know, this next week is gonna be great. It's gonna be 70 all week.
Right.
And you're gonna get a chance for that glue to, if it's outside, for that glue to really set. But if you didn't have that, then it could take longer for the vinyl to actually, you know, for that adhesive to go. So that's why we actually use that. That's why we use that high temperature from the torch to be able to do that. So, and then last one here. This one's actually the harder one. This one is got a lot. This is the smallest text. So again, it's not going to have a very big outline on here.
Right.
Is it really? And really, I actually, if you look at the original artwork that you guys gave us, this has even a smaller pinstripe on this text.
Yep.
I had to bolden it because if you don't have enough, if you don't have enough, it's just not ever gonna line up correctly.
Right,
so,
right.
So what I'm gonna do.
We like that because we're all about bold and use basic motorsports.
Exactly.
Besides, it works perfectly digitally.
Exactly. Yeah, it works.
You know,
out
but
great.
in real life, you need a little larger.
Yeah. But with this one, this is another method that you could do with applying is going down up. I don't use it very often because gravity, it always helps to go down or apply downwards because your vinyl is already there. But in this case, you have to use it to because of that big body line that's on there.
Yep.
And some people, when they're watching people do this online, they cringe because they don't want them to cut the vehicle. But yeah. So, but we.
So then, basically, in these actual what we're doing right now,
Yeah.
you've actually showed us, if I had counted right, 5 different applications.
Yeah, and that is everybody. That's what I'm trying to show is like the videos I see online, the ones that I watch. Everyone says this is the method. There is no method,
Right,
and
right.
there's even more than that of how you could do this.
Yeah.
And everybody has what is comfortable for them.
Yeah, right, yeah.
Just like when people are putting on stickers on your car, a bumper sticker. People just peel off the back and stick it on.
Yeah, right, yeah, yeah.
But from working in this industry for as long as we have, when you see people walking, going down the road and their bumper stickers crooked, it drives you nuts.
Yes, that's right.
So I try to tell people as much as you can, try to get it as close as you can, and this allows you to have a couple different methods. So.
I'll tell you, it's probably the fact, because my luck, if it was crooked, somebody in the stands would come
They'd
and
see.
see me and said, listen, I just saw you go past me at 185 miles an hour, but I noticed that was crooked.
Yep, they know. No, and there's a lot to it, and it's people notice things like that, and I mean that's with us quality. Honestly, quality is the biggest important stuff besides customer service. Quality is the biggest thing because that's what people deserve. You shouldn't be having to come back for stuff like that. So now that that is done, we know there's no missing letters. We know the big bubbles are out of it. Then what you can do is, the best thing is you can use either fingernail, which I don't have a lot right now, or you can use, this is the better method. Now I have to really stress, these are dull down razor blades. These are not the ones that you get from Lowe's and you just go right at it because that will scratch the paint. We dull down razor blades. You dull it down on one side, which will allow you to just touch the surface, same as your fingernail. And so it won't scratch it. The main deal about when you take vinyl off is you do not want to try to chip away at it. All you really want to do is just barely get it started, and all that does is allow you to be able to pull it up. So if you don't have a fingernail to do it, then all you got to do is just barely touch it sometime. And I really don't like going I go as far as I can to be able to do that, and that way you're not scratching anybody's vehicle either. So.
And folks, you got to understand how much I trust these folks over here to do the job that I bring it for them to do, because they're basically using a razor blade
Yes. Right on your vehicle.
on this paint job.
And that paint job is worth more than most people's cars. So yes, so it's worth it. So, but once you're done with that, we're gonna do the same thing real quick like we did before. We're just gonna heat it. That gives this vinyl, this layer, a chance to sit. It'll also give you a chance to see with at an angle. We have the door open right now, so I can see at an angle if there's any big bubbles that need to be popped. And also if I missed anything with pressure. So once you do that, again, the little stuff is going to go down once the UV exposure is there. Now you can see I'm constantly moving, never stop in the same spot, and I'm not right on the car. That's when you start to see issues with gassing and issues with the clear coat. So that is it. When it comes to vinyl treatment, with something like this, it's best not to go through a car wash, not to do high pressure washing. It's a sticker, so you do high pressure, it's gonna come off. Sure. You don't want to use that, and then when you do wash it, use a nice soft cloth that's not going to try to grip at the sharp corners, sharp points. It does come off, and you just got to be cautious with that. But if you treat them right, they can last, like I said, easily 8 to 10 years if you treat your stuff right. So.
Right.
Beautiful job.
That's it.
Awesome. And everybody, listen. Thank you, Kyle, for all your time you took. I know this was above and beyond.
No, it's good.
But hey, listen, you guys, visit them at Larsen Sign Company. You're on your website.
Yep,
you have a Facebook. And by all means, we're on all these Basic Motorsports. We're on all the platforms. We're going to be putting this on how-to videos. We're going to be slapping this out to all of our platforms. Hey, give these guys a call. They're awesome. They care, they got customer service, and they will go above and beyond and not give you an attitude while it's happening. So, Kyle, thank you so very much. I appreciate it. Have a great day.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.